I mean, I don't think journalism is dead. It's just that, like, storytelling is as important as ever. Information is important as ever. It's just that we spent a lot of time getting it for free through the internet, and the platforms have changed and they haven't been monetized. Like, people are still trying to figure out how to make money out of this stuff. Like, the New York Times kind of gets it. I think a lot of our big platforms here now are sort of moving to paywall things because they haven't really figured it out. The demand is there, but because people have had it for free for so long, they're like, oh, I don't know.
Welcome to another episode of the Heart Media podcast. Today we have the one and only Pat Nourse, Creative Director of Melbourne Food and Wine. What a cool guy, isn't he?
Awesome guy. He had so much to talk about. He's lived a really interesting life. I loved speaking with him. He just had so much knowledge and such a fantastic way of explaining things, which I guess comes with being a writer for so many years. And I just really appreciated having his person in here and just getting to pick his brain. We went for quite a while and we could have gone for quite a while more.
Yeah, check it out.
Like, share, subscribe. We love you. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. All of that. That's it.
Sharpest.
Yeah. Hi, Pat. Thank you
Hello,
so much
and welcome
for coming
to your show.
Thanks for coming on. Really appreciate it.
That was a really good warm-up.
Yeah, we should talk about soaps more often.
Yeah. Soaps, camping. This is a different kind of a podcast today.
Yeah,
it's not the Heart
absolutely.
Media
So
podcast
good.
anymore.
Totally.
That's the holiday season. Now our first question, we wanted to ask you, how are you feeding your curiosity these days?
Ooh, I like the use of the Melbourne Food Wine Festival tagline in that question. I feed it by stepping out of the house every day and walking around and looking at things and talking to people. That's endless delight to me. Like, the job I do, whether it's working at the Melbourne Food Wine Festival or the job that I've done most of my working life, which is as a journalist and an editor, is about paying attention to stuff and maybe looking at stuff and thinking about it in a different way and telling people about it. So all of that comes back to curiosity.
Which you have to be present for. So how do you kind of maintain that openness and curiosity and, willingness to explore those things on a day-to-day?
That's a good question. I mean, I think part of it is hardwired. Part of it is a truth bomb that I think one of my parents dropped on me when I was a kid. You know how, like, when you're a kid, you're like, I'm bored, help me.
Yeah.
Is there anything more boring than being a teenager? Do you remember the kind of boredom you experienced as a teenager?
Yeah.
It's like, apart from being on an airplane, like, how do you even access that kind of boredom as an adult? You're too busy all the time. And anyway, this friend of mine's mum said, interesting people are interested people. And I was like, oh, by implication, being bored is boring.
Because you're boring.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, maybe that kind of goaded me in that direction at the beginning. I don't know. Pay attention. There's something to be learned somewhere, always.
Yeah.
Now let's bring it back to that moment when you got told interesting people are interested people. Is that
Interested people are
Let's just
interesting
go all
people.
the way back. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your background. How did you get into journalism? How did your career launched?
Well, I was born in the back of a travelling show. My mama used to dance for the pennies they'd throw. No.
Oh my god, I almost believed you.
It went
man.
in, yeah, it
I'm
was
like,
good.
this is
Me
gonna
and
be so
Cher,
interesting.
I could sing it for you. That'd be memorable.
That was a Cher quote,
That
was
was
it?
so good.
Yeah,
One of the
Um,
best.
it's great. Great track. Her memoir's out soon.
Is it?
Can't wait.
Yeah.
She's lived many lives.
100%.
My professional background is journalism. I grew up in Canberra. I moved to Sydney to do a traineeship with what used to be called Fairfax, which is the publisher of The
How old
Age
were
and
you?
the Sydney Morning Herald. I was 21, so I'd done a degree in journalism. I lived in Bathurst and studied broadcast journalism there. There was not a lot of amazing food when I was growing up in Canberra. Like, I met other food journalists who were like, oh, like mummy was a diplomat, and we lived in 17 countries by the time I was 12, and my father, he was just really in touch with the land, and we had this incredible market garden, blah blah blah. I would love that to be my origin story. It is absolutely not my story. My mum was a good cook and an interested cook, but though my parents were both from the countryside, my dad was from Broken Hill. My mum was from a small dairying and cane town in the northern rivers of New South Wales. They kind of swung hard the other way. They weren't like, oh, I only want to have milk fresh from the cow and, produce I've grown myself. They were like, okay, we've grown up with all that cow fresh milk and produce. Not so much my dad. There's nothing in Broken Hill. Let's get to these supermarkets and just eat food that comes out of packets. So I am intimately familiar with the food of all of the major supermarket chains and the world's best fast food brands.
Yeah.
I strongly believe that the best thing that McDonald's does is an off-menu hack when you get a cheeseburger, ideally a double cheeseburger, and you get it on a fillet-o-fish bun. It's kind of easy now that you've got those touch screens, but before you had to used to be able to talk the person on the counter into it. It's a good time.
Talk them into it.
Yeah, and I kind of grew up in Canberra, particularly when I was growing up, was very, very homogenous. Like, there wasn't really much of a Chinatown. There wasn't a lot of diversity in the eating and drinking.
So you weren't surrounded by that inspiration.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Absolutely
not. How did it
not.
come?
I moved to Sydney, as I said, and that was just like, whoa, this is the best. And I lived pretty close to Chinatown when I first moved there, and that was love at first sight.
That must have blown your mind
That's the best. I love
coming from where you were to a place that had a Chinatown and all that Asian food.
And living almost in it. Like, Chinatowns of the world represent. And I just was sort of pretty voracious in that. I was just really excited when you find a subject that interests you and when you're really into it, you just can't stop.
Especially at that age.
I'm so it's a terrible cliche, but you soak it up like a sponge. You're just like, I can't get enough of this.
So that was food journalism at that time for you?
Both. It was sort of, I think the hunger for it came first. So as a cadet, you're not specifically doing food journalism. You're sort of doing everything. And I guess if I'd shown a real aptitude for writing about horse racing or the education system, I guess they probably would have pushed me more in that direction. But my interest was in food and drink. So I had some really good opportunities. I got pretty early on in my career a regular gig writing a column called Eat Streets for Sunday Life, which is a Sunday supplement in the Sun Herald, the equivalent of the Sunday Age here in Melbourne.
It had an early success, good
Well,
validation.
it was really cool because the focus of that column was not like the big deal restaurants in the city. It was 6 restaurants on a particular street somewhere in Sydney. And so for someone who hadn't eaten particularly widely and didn't really know Sydney, I needed to visit 6 restaurants for every column, and it was one of those every fortnight. So for years, I was just like on the train out to every part of Sydney, eating the food, eating the food,
That's
eating
an
the food,
incredible
eating the
journey.
food. Yeah, it was.
love
I
that.
don't know if I recognized it at the time, and also it wasn't like a limitless expense account, but they did pick up a considerable amount of the bill, so that was a real privilege. And I was earning $27,000 a year, so
You needed that.
I needed that. But it also forced me to go places that maybe I wouldn't have thought to go.
Yeah, what an
both
excellent
geographically and things like that. So that was really cool.
It's
Yeah.
like
So-
traveling in Sydney.
Yeah.
Because I find that here, like, we live here and there's so much to explore, but we actually don't do it. We
You don't
kind
go
of
more
just
than-
settled here. But when we travel, you do that exploring. But in that case, you are like exploring as
Yeah.
a job, which
Yeah,
is
it's like you're
pretty
a tourist
cool.
in your own city, which is so fantastic.
And I had an editor.
Jesus.
Sorry,
That's terrible.
I don't understand.
Yeah, it's like you're a tourist in your own city, which is
Yeah.
so amazing. You would have met so many interesting people, and it would have like put you out of your comfort zone. Because when you went, were you telling them that you were from these publications?
No, it's it's doing it on the down low,
Yeah,
restaurant
yeah,
review
yeah.
styles. So fly on the wall, writing a lot of notes, making observation. I look back on those. Some of those notes I still have. Some of them are digitized. And I'm like, that was super interesting. So this is pre-phones in the main. So just raw dogging it on the train. Read a lot of books. Imagine catching trains all day long now without a smartphone.
Yeah.
Like
Amazing.
passing time at the train
Actually,
station.
I
Raw
honestly
dogging it with
sometimes I fantasize on these ideas, like no phone, no tech. Like I feel like I want to leave that for a bit. I feel. Does that make sense?
Super boring though. I mean, it's good and it's bad. I mean, I remember like my family's in Canberra. I remember the bus from Canberra to Sydney, which is 3.5 hours on a good day, being like without a smartphone or a book that you're really into, it's really boring. Like when you're doing it all the time. Whereas with a phone, you're like, oh, I'm here now.
Yeah.
You know, like
yeah, that's
it's
true.
it's easy.
Yeah,
So
it makes it. Yeah. Okay.
That's good.
So you're like early 20s at that time.
ate a lot,
Ate a lot.
drank a lot,
Drank a lot.
read
Walked
a lot, walked a lot,
Yeah.
looked at a lot of things,
Okay.
wrote a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Had the benefit of some really good editors as
Yeah.
well, which is great. So, and I mean, I've had a lot of people work for me, who want to know more about writing, and the number one thing that you need to do to get better at writing is to just write a lot.
Sorry, can you just explain to us and the audience, like, so you're right, and there is an editor.
Yeah. So
Okay.
in the day, I was a freelancer. I had a day job at one part of this company, but I was freelancing as a regular restaurant columnist for this magazine, Sunday Life, and I would send an email to my editor, and I'd be like, well, for like the next couple of weeks, I'm thinking I will do, this road in Parramatta or that road in Chatswood, and I'll go and take a look, and I'll find 6 interesting restaurants, and he or she would be like, yeah, cool, do that. Or we just did this, or so-and-so's doing that, so maybe do this instead. Great. Go and do the thing, go to the places. These were all like 6. So it'd sit on a single page. So it'd be like 650-word reviews. Bang, 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 like that. And then a couple of weeks later, the photographer would go and take a picture of all of them, and they'd print it.
Wow.
So no social media back then. It would have
Yeah.
been great for social media, but it didn't exist. So this is like 2000 to probably 2004 for me.
Yeah.
And once that sort of kicked off, I started, like, people would approach me to do other pieces of writing and other regular columns for other publications, and it kind of snowballed from there.
Do you miss those days?
It was pretty fun. You used to get paid a lot more than you do now. Like
As a writer.
Yeah, the arse has really fallen out of the journalism business. Like, I was getting paid then per word what people get paid now if they are lucky.
Yeah,
And that was 20 years ago.
I wanted to ask you that question. Like, is that even a thing? Like, do people study, like, to be a writer these days? Like, is just...
Far fewer, I
Yeah,
would say. I
yeah.
mean, it's quite hard to find new writers. Like, at Melbourne Food Wine Festival, we're a publisher as well as a, events company. And we do a lot of our publishing in-house. I've got a really great bunch of colleagues working with me, Frank Sweet and Stopless Rick Stevens among them, writing with me. And we work with some great freelancers. But, when people are asking me for recommendations, or if I'm looking for more writers, there's not a lot of new people on the scene. And it's a structural thing because there's not that many places to write, and it just doesn't pay that well. You used to be able to pay your rent as a freelance writer. Now that's really hard.
Especially with AI and, like, digitals and, it just seems...
I don't think the AI has made a difference yet. It's actually more a thing that's a bit older than that, and it's the internet killing the publishing business. Like, most of the publishing business, online or off, was powered by advertising, and most of that advertising has gone straight to sites where you just go there for the
Meta.
thing you want to buy. Like
Yeah.
newspapers used to be powered by classifieds.
Mm.
So they used to call them the rivers of gold. So I don't know if you guys ever saw a big Saturday newspaper in the day, but let's say 20 years ago when they were still pretty big, the Saturday Age or the Saturday Sydney Morning Herald would be this big. And you'd have, the equivalent of today's newspaper just on car ads, just on job ads, just on house ads. And that it wasn't really online.
Because that's how people got their information.
Yeah, and each of those ads cost one person $50 or $100, and there were thousands of them, and they were every week. Like they could not make money, And then the internet came along, and it does those things really well. Like if you want to find a 1978 Ford Cortina that's mint green, or a 2-bedroom apartment in Pakenham where you can also have a cow, or a person who's really into long walks and short dinners, any of those things, you don't want to be leafing through an enormous newspaper for that. You can just like plug that into,
type it and click.
Yeah, you can plug it into, eBay or Grindr or whatever your platform of choice is. And yeah, you should definitely put mint green Cortina into Grindr and see where that takes you.
Really good result.
And that was it for newspapers. And then magazines, I think the phones did it for magazines.
Yeah.
Like
I was about to ask that I think is the form of also like the difference in preferences of media that have really kind of killed journalism too, because now everybody they don't want to read something when they could just be told it.
Yeah.
Someone can just say it to someone can just say it to them in a video.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think journalism is dead. It's just that like storytelling is as important as ever. Information is important as ever. It's just that we spent a lot of time getting it for free through the internet. And the platforms have changed and they haven't been monetized. Like people are still trying to figure out how to make money out of this stuff. Like the New York Times kind of gets it. I think a lot of our big platforms here now are sort of moving to paywall things because they haven't really figured it out. The demand is there, but because people have had it for free for so long, they're like, oh, I don't know, like how's this going to work? But anyway, so where you used to maybe if you were killing time, waiting for a bus, having a cup of tea, whatever, you'd look at a magazine. Now you look at your phone. So yeah. So no one's paying for advertising, which means no one's paying for newspapers or magazines, or not paying you very well to write online or to podcast. So I guess there's not that many people getting into journalism. I don't know what they do now instead. Mixed martial arts, perhaps.
Journalists.
Yeah, well, the people who would have gone into journalism, like when I was a boy, when I was younger, it used to be really competitive. You had to have a high, what do we call it now? What's the score you get when you finish year 12 now? What's it called?
ATAR?
It was a TR when I was there. You needed like above 95 to get into the
Really?
top
To get into journalism
schools, and now they'll just basically like. I imagine they'd be like,
please come,
yeah.
Please,
what made you want to
please.
be? I don't know if we spoke about this. What made you want to be a journalist in the first place?
The curiosity thing, I think. I like the access. Like I was really interested in law, and I had the grades for it, and I was like right up to the last minute thinking like, be a lawyer, that'll be interesting. God knows what I was thinking when I was 16 and 17. Isn't it weird that our life decisions are made by teenagers, like the teenage us? What an idiot. I wouldn't trust that guy to like pick out a shirt.
Honestly, but look, sometimes it just works out so well for you. It's like it's pretty lucky, because a lot of people actually don't get to trust that voice and end up taking like weird path. And
well, I don't know,
what I mean?
I was wrong though at the same time. Like at the last minute I was like, oh my god, like lawyering, picturing myself, okay, so if I become a lawyer 10 or 15 years from now, I will be pretty well paid, but I'll just be like a lawyer and it'll be boring.
Yeah.
And I'll become a journalist because it'll mean like I'll get to go places and see things and meet people that this lawyer version of me, I'm going to stop hitting your mic, sorry, wouldn't be able to get. Not knowing that you can do a law degree and then do something completely different. Like some of the most interesting people I've met professionally have done a law degree to like tighten up their brains, and then they've gone and done journalism, or they've become a beef farmer, or they break dance for a living, So if you're listening to this 16-year-old Pat Nourse, you could also become a lawyer. Yeah. But whatever, who cares?
This actually leads into a pretty good question that we ask.
Also,
guess
the arse has not fallen out of the
breakdancing.
the pay situation in lawyering, as far as I've known.
Yeah,
Whereas
no, definitely
the
not.
profession
It
I
continues to
chose
inflate,
became
just like
structurally
everything else.
unstable quite soon after I got
Yeah,
into it.
yeah.
So
You do look like you really enjoy your job. Like you can sense that energy of you, like your passion, your like literally when I asked you about how are you feeling, your curiosity, your answer was like related to your job. So I think that's a bless.
I do love my job. It's great. I'm really lucky. I mean, there's this idea now that like Gen Ys and Gen Zs need to like rethink the whole follow your passion thing because it's setting you up to fail, you know.
Wow.
Because not everyone, it's maybe not a really good idea actually in terms of like thinking about how you will feed and clothe yourself and or pay for your children. Like you might be lucky
The
and
passion
follow your
pursuit.
passion. Yeah, but
Yeah.
maybe you should become a dentist who's really good at windsurfing on the side, or maybe you should work in a bank but write your novel on the weekends. You know, like
Yeah.
it doesn't. I remember interviewing a chef a million years ago for Gourmet Traveller. It was like one of those features where we ring up 20 chefs and say, if you met the 20-year-old or the 16-year-old you tomorrow, what would you tell you as a piece of advice? And this guy, this is literally 20 years ago, and I remember it ever since. He said, become a dentist who gives good dinner parties instead. And I was like, that is one way of doing it.
Yeah.
You know, like-
Yeah, I did hear that from a podcast I was once listening to. It's like you really don't need to chase that passion all the time. It's okay to have a full-time job that you don't like, you're not obsessed with, but a passion.
It allows you to do
Doing
the things that you do
photography.
want to do.
Yeah,
He, as a photographer,
yeah.
it's your passion, and now you do photography full time.
Yeah,
it's
but
different for you
I
now.
kind of lost a little bit of that passion, a little bit, because when it becomes a job, you feel a lot more restricted and briefed. And if you're doing it all day, the last thing you want to do is do it again after, which is what passion should be. You know what I mean?
And that's what drove you to be a photographer in the first place.
Yeah, but I guess I'm learning to kind of balance it.
I mean, it can work. I mean, I'm a good example. Like, I really like it. It's, I think it was Mark Twain who said, find a way to make your vacation your vocation. But I think you need to be clear-eyed about the opportunities. Like, how many people get into acting gigs? How many people can be a lead guitarist in a rock band? Does that even pay anymore?
Look, I really think the world we live in, the social media world, has created so many opportunities for people to actually pursue that, but you really have to treat it as a job. Do you know what I mean? Like, you have to take yourself seriously. But the things we see on social media, there is a place for everyone if you work hard enough.
You have to work hard, because I feel like a lot, and I've spoken to people, I know I'm young, but younger than me, people that it's like 17, 16. I'm like, oh, what do you want to do? It's like, oh, I'm going to start a business, like an e-commerce business, and then just go run it really hard for a year, and then sell it and basically like retire, because I'm going to make so much money from it in a year. And it's like, well, maybe they've seen
with a crypto sideline,
yeah,
and some drop shipping.
yeah,
Shout out
maybe
crypto.
they've seen one person on social media do that and they think that they can do it, but obviously that person, whoever it was, worked really hard for it, or they just happened to fall into it at the right time, and it's not the truth for the majority of it. But
I mean,
it's a bit of a
so
skewed
much of it is luck.
reality.
So much of it is luck. Like
Yeah.
Luck,
any
there
any
is
job,
luck.
and I need to acknowledge that I've sort of put in the hours, but a lot of it's luck. A lot of it's right place, right time. You got to make your own luck. You got to be ready for it, and you got to jump on those opportunities. But like anyone who doesn't recognize the place of the luck of the draw in their success is kidding themselves.
What have been some of your luckiest moments?
Nothing crazy, but like just being, I mean, if we want to get big picture about it, being born in Australia, being born male probably gives you a lot of advantages.
Okay.
I mean, being
Yeah,
born
yeah, it does.
able-bodied,
Right.
that stuff
Right.
really helps, puts you already at an advantage being, born in a time when we've got dentistry and clean water. I think I've just kind of met the right people at the right time. Like a lot of I'm not a like 10-year plan and 5-year plan person. Like a lot of it has been the right thing coming along at the right time and me being in a position to take it. Like my partner is job hunting at the moment, and she had a really great offer in front of her, and she's going to have to turn it down because the timing just isn't going to work, and she's really anguished about it. And I'm like, this is so much of this game. Like, it could be the perfect job, but if your timing doesn't line up, you've just kind of got to go.
So how do things move for you from there? Like,
Fast.
great. Love to hear it.
It's like, let's do a montage of me like eating lots of stuff and a lot of typing like
Yeah,
this.
and then-
And I went from kind of covering my city to then working at Gourmet Traveller, which is like a food and travel magazine, which gave me the opportunity to do what I'd been doing, but on a global scale. So I stayed there for 14 years, which is a, pretty wild, long time to be in one job. But it was such a unique opportunity to travel the world and kind of do what I'd done traveling around, Punchbowl and Manly and Sutherlandshire in Sydney, except going to Burma or Mexico or China or whatever. And again, that thing that I love, access. Like you can go to any of those places. Well, probably shouldn't go to Burma right now, but going and being put in touch with people who really know the lay of the land and being able to like just get that fast forward experience where you can get right under the skin of a city really quickly is wonderful.
Or a job.
Like, and for a job.
That's
yeah.
incredible.
How was your experience starting that? And then
I had to get naked with a
evolve?
really good looking photographer guy on my first overseas assignment. Anson Smart, if you were listening to this, that was very intimidating for me.
Oh my
He's
God.
an extremely tall,
Is this
good looking.
true?
This is 100% true.
Okay.
So I'm going to reveal to you a fact that people don't know about me, which is that my naked buttocks have been in Gourmet Traveller magazine.
No way.
Yes way. It's not a sealed section.
We're obviously gonna flash a photo of it now.
Obviously.
Yeah,
I'm not
on-
going to
on
tell
the
you which
YouTube
issue,
video.
and I worked there for 14 years, so good luck with that.
That's
but
crazy.
my first ever overseas
What was your
assignment,
buttocks doing?
well, just winking, obviously. A pert wink, I like to think of
Right.
it. No, I got sent to cover Niseko, which is, a ski resort in the island of Hokkaido in Japan, which in 2004 was kind of a new thing. Like we think of skiing in Japan as pretty commonplace
thing that
now.
you do know, yeah.
But it was pretty new then. You could Jetstar had just started flying direct from Australia to Hokkaido, which is awesome. So me and Anson Smart, a very talented photographer who I'd never met, got sent over there, spent a week there, snowboarding, which was still a thing then. Is it back? I don't know. I can never keep track.
Snowboarding is a thing. I
Yeah,
would say.
it sort of comes and goes in
yeah,
fashion.
so
It
is
was
skiing.
sort of in fashion then, and then skiing has sort of taken over, and then anyway, whatever. We were snowboarding. A lot of this story was like, apart from the skiing, a lot of the story was the off-piste stuff. So like the cool wacky food you can have, the fact that you can get like hot soup in cans out of vending machines on the mountain, or that they had night skiing, or that people would like ski wearing these huge crazy furry outfits, and the incredible bars in this town, like some of the best bars I've ever been to, even though some of them served hot Campari, which is weird. And lots of onsens, the volcanic hot springs. You can't photograph the general public in an onsen because they don't consent to being photographed naked. You need to be naked if you're going in a Japanese volcanic hot spring. But we needed photographs of these hot springs with people in them.
Oh.
So
you
we
were the naked
organised to
guy.
close one off, and then we got a bunch of like Australians who were hanging around there, or actually people from all around the world, but ski people were like, we need extras for this shot. We need people in the shot so it looks busy. They need to be naked. And I was among those extras. It's all tasteful. There's a lot of like
Not the main character.
carefully
Can't wait to
placed
see it.
towels and things like that. But yeah, that was my entree to travel writing. And also I had to, you got to get nude in these onsens.
Yeah.
And I had to get nude with this man that I was traveling with a lot.
Fantastic.
Straight up. And he was much fitter than I was at the time. So
That would have been.
it was a lot. I mean, it's probably a lot more for
Good
him
learning curve.
than it was for me in
That's
retrospect.
hilarious.
We did other travel stories together. It was okay.
How did your how did you feel going into that role? First off, how'd you get the gig at Gourmet Traveller? How did you feel going into it, and how did that evolve? I know you were you just good at it already because you'd already been so used to traveling around Sydney and going to all the places, or was it something new, going to new countries and kind of telling those stories?
I mean, I was blessed with the total self-confidence of a 27-year-old man. But I mean, I think I read my stuff from back then. And I think, yeah, like you kind of like have a voice. Like when I work with people who want to learn how to write or new writers, what I've learned, having looked at this question for a long time, is there's a fair bit of you have it or you don't. Like if you don't have it, you can work really hard and you will be an okay writer, but you always have to work really, really, really hard to be okay. And if you've got it, whatever it is, you're most of the way there, but you probably need to kind of polish it up and
You
work
got it.
on it. Well, I can't say that, but people pay me to write.
Some
So
people think that you've
people
got
pay
it.
me to write,
I think people
and they
would
have
agree.
done for 20 years. So
Yeah.
yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
And then, one of the hard things, I guess, if you're coming up today, is because there's no money in journalism anymore. We had a really good team. Like we had editors, we had sub-editors. You write something, then you read it, then I read it, then we talk about it together, then you rewrite it, and then we talk about it again and you rewrite it again, which sounds tedious, but good writing is rewriting. So there was enough money in the system that there was some quality control, there are opportunities to learn and think. Whereas if you're a new writer today, you have to do your growing up in public very quickly. And probably a lot of what you're writing is unfiltered. So you're just chucking stuff out there, which is cool. Like it's great from having the means of production yourself. You don't need to be a lucky person who has a job in journalism. There's less of that gatekeeping. You can just get in there. That's great. But on the other hand, you are afforded fewer opportunities to work on your craft. And you can do that yourself. That is possible. But it's much easier if you've got experienced people helping you. And I definitely benefited from that.
Yeah.
So shout out to
Helped to
all the
mold you.
people who were patient enough with me to help me become a better writer.
What are some standout memories that you have of your time traveling so much for Gourmet Traveller?
I think, I mean, I don't want to keep harping on about this access thing, but just those wonderful experiences that you couldn't have otherwise. Like, I remember traveling with Palissa Anderson, who's the founder of Chat Thai in Sydney, in Phuket. We were with she and her mum. They're Thai restaurateurs from Sydney. They have incredible restaurants. And they knew Phuket really well and had really good connections. And one day we went to a tiny little Muslim fishing village where it was all on stilts, and the whole village was not much bigger than this whole cafe, and the mayor invited us to his house and his wife cooked, and it was all just stuff that the guys in the fishing village had brought in themselves from the waters around there, like this incredible oyster salad and beautiful crab, and just yes, the food was extraordinary, but also the moment, like being in this person's house, talking to them one-to-one about their experience, being just somewhere really different. These people live in a tiny village on stilts in the sea, in the islands north of Phuket. Just crazy, like wonderful, and just so hospitable. That sort of stuff, that's pretty hard to beat.
Yeah.
Must have felt like a dream to do that as a job.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a pretty good thing to get paid for. The other thing I really enjoyed is just working with people who are new. I really love the writers I worked with. I love working with photographers. I was an editor for a lot of this time, so beyond the writing thing, it was like, okay, you take amazing pictures and you've got a really good take on the world. Why don't you two go to this place and bring back a story about this? Or what do you guys think about this? And you bring something interesting to the table, and you bring something interesting to the table, and I put you together and you come back with something extra interesting that maybe you wouldn't have come up with on your own. You know, and that translates to the festival. Like, that's one of my favorite things that we do, or that I get to do at Melbourne Food Wine Festival, is bring people together or bounce ideas around with them, and maybe we end up in a place that we wouldn't have got to on our own. That's super fun.
That's the creative side of
Did
it.
you jump from Gourmet to Melbourne Food and Wine?
Yeah.
Okay? Is that because you wanted to like settle and you got over the travel lifestyle, or?
I kind of miss the travel, to be honest with you, but I think it was just time to do something new. Also, I really wanted to live in Melbourne. So I wanted to live in Melbourne forever. I've wanted to live in Melbourne before I wanted to live in Sydney. I've actually been trying to live in Melbourne since I was a teenager. It just took me a really long time to get here. So I've lived here 5 years ago. So I moved here in March of 2019, which is a great time
With your current job?
to take this job,
Oh, wow.
to get this job.
That's pretty cool.
Why did you want to live in Melbourne for so long?
It's just, I always loved it. Like, I remember visiting Melbourne as a teenager, or maybe I was 20, and just thinking, like, you go to a place sometimes and it just clicks. That's how I feel about Melbourne.
Right.
Moving here just before COVID, maybe not the best timing. That kind of sucked. But no regrets.
What are some of your favorite things about the city?
The eating and drinking's pretty good.
It is.
The thing I really love is the food shopping.
Yeah.
And that's not something that you can really experience as a tourist so much. But when you live here, I think, well, how can I live anywhere else? I lived not far from here, and during that period of lockdown when we could only go 5 kilometers from our homes, I was like, I live in a really good 5 kilometers.
Yeah.
Like, from here, I can get yellow plums from Afghanistan. I can get rooster testicles. I can buy a fresh mud crab. I can go to 6 of the best sourdough bakeries in the country. All of this stuff. Like, lots of cities have this stuff. If you live in New York or Shanghai or London, maybe not so much Shanghai, but you get this incredible diversity of stuff. And being able to get it all here is pretty cool.
Just to quickly touch on the rooster testicles. I mean, we kind of glazed over it. What are you cooking with rooster testicles these
I've
days?
never bought them, and I don't know what to do with them.
Right,
I'm
right.
thinking,
But you like to have the option.
who doesn't?
Yeah, of course.
What do you guys reckon?
Yeah.
Like a fricassee kind of situation?
Actually-
Breaded and fried? I've eaten
No,
other
I've
testicles
had
of
it.
other animals.
I honestly tried them, yeah.
How'd you have it?
It's a thing. You fry them with like bit of like lemon and
Yeah. Pretty much anything fried with
parsley
lemon and parsley is going to be good. Let's
yeah,
face
it's
it.
so
yeah.
nice. Yeah, a bit of garlic sometimes. Beautiful.
The chicken shop at Preston Market on the far side of the aisle, opposite the fish shop on the corner.
Aren't they
They're
closing down
selling.
Preston Market?
I'm not. There's
That was
been
up in the
there's
air
been
for
a stay
ages.
of execution for a couple of years. I don't know what the longer term situation is there. I certainly hope that they don't,
Yeah.
because that place is. I mean, we have a lot of great markets in this town, but Preston for me is the one.
I love it.
Preston rules.
Shout out.
It's so good.
Preston rolls.
Like, eating and drinking, the hectic queues for the
Yeah.
Italian bread shop that only opens on Saturdays.
Yeah.
Like, parking's fucked.
Yeah.
But it's a great market. Like, there's having lived in Sydney doesn't have one market like that, and Melbourne has like 7.
True.
Let alone the farmers markets.
Mm.
We don't know how lucky we have it here. How good
Preston
we have it
Market
here.
is iconic.
Yeah.
So a big jump from like writing to being a director, or was it kind of just something that you used to?
How was the transition?
I mean, magazines in the time that I worked in them kind of like had become by necessity more than magazines. Like, you were doing online stuff, you're doing events, you're doing all sorts of things. The days of just sort of being a writer and editor, working just with words and ink and paper and photography, they were already over by the time I got into the game. So
Yeah.
I'd had experience putting on events. I was pretty, I really wanted to find a job where I could stay connected with hospitality. I already had these contacts and this experience that I'd spent years on. So finding a way to keep using that professionally was pretty important to me. And this job offered a great opportunity. And also, Gourmet Traveller and Melbourne Food Wine Festival had sort of been professionally partnered for many years. So I'd been coming to the festival for a decade, more than a decade, hosting events, working with a variety of the past creative team, sort of to bounce around ideas about talent to bring out and what to do with them. So it was still a pretty big change, but again, I had the benefit of working with a really good team. The events team at the Melbourne Food and Wine Festival is incredible. It's a really polished events company. The festival's the oldest food festival in Australia. It's been around for 32 years. These guys know what they're doing. So
It's fantastic.
yeah.
Just so we're all clear, what's
What
your
is
role?
what is a Melbourne Food and Wine Festival?
What is Melbourne? No.
What's a truck? Don't play dumb with me. Melbourne Food and Wine Festival. What's my role? I'm the creative director.
Yeah, but what does that
What
entail?
does it mean? That's true. I'm fond of saying that creative director can kind of mean a multitude of sins. I think I need a scarf, really. Don't you think a creative director needs a flamboyant scarf
I
of
would
some kind?
also pitch some fun glasses.
And I think, or an asymmetrical haircut. I am afforded fewer opportunities there genetically than most, but not none.
Yeah.
Definitely maybe some chunkier feature jewelry.
Pink socks.
Yeah, all these things. I'm missing
True.
so many tricks here.
True.
Next time, if I ever have the good fortune to be on your show again, I will come in full creative director drag for you.
Oh,
I
we're
promise you.
Are you going to be at the longest brunch?
I will.
Yeah, hopefully we're there.
Cool.
Yeah.
You
Maybe
should
we'll
come.
see you
It's
there.
gonna be
And
great.
then you
It's gonna be
should
a ripper.
sporting some type of feathered hat, something. Anyway, I'm going to leave it up to you.
Definitely a feather
If you
hat.
wanna-
Definitely
if you
a
wanna
feather hat.
collaborate
Actually,
on
just
something-
anything that Owen Wilson wore as Hansel in
Yeah.
the first Zoolander movie, that will be me.
And you'll
Julia
walk in
Busuttil
and we'll
Nishimura is
say-
going to be like, this is a strong look.
You're walking and say, that's Pat.
Yeah,
He's so hard.
Is he fanning himself with a Pantone book? Oh my God, look at that guy.
so edgy?
So for the purposes of what I do, I work mostly across what I grudgingly call curation or choosing stuff.
Why grudgingly?
I just feel like the word curate and curated is so wildly overused these days. It makes me want to punch myself in the face. If you're not if you don't work at a museum, you're not curating.
You're not a curate.
You're not
shit.
curating the things that are on your sandwich. It's not.
Yeah.
Not curating
Yeah.
what's going on the Scrabble board. Let's just take it down a notch. If that's bringing you joy, then go for it. Working on events, so thinking of ideas and or wrangling talent or working with talent. And then we're also a publisher, so I head up the content side of things. So we publish a lot of editorial about eating and drinking in the great state of Victoria. We do some awesome things on socials. We just got our first ever 12 million view reel the other day, which we're really happy about.
Congratulations.
It's about broccoli stems.
Awesome.
Oh, I saw that actually.
Everyone
you did
saw
a
that.
collaboration with
The fruit
someone.
nerd.
Yeah.
Tan, you
yeah.
should definitely talk to Tan. Tan, I don't know how much you guys move in the fruit influencer space,
I
but
would love to get him on.
That's
Tan
it.
is a big mover in that area, and he's an excellent guy.
Yeah.
Knows a lot about fruit.
I love to
and
get
broccoli.
him on. So I'm wildly interested about the
Broccoli
Melbourne Food
stems.
and Wine Festival and broccoli stems. Sure, throw it in.
Team STEM all the way.
What's the process? Okay, so you've on the lead up to this Melbourne Food and Wine Festival.
Yes.
When does it start? Is it always happening? What's the process? What do you go through?
So Melbourne Food and Wine Festival, our organisation runs year round, but in terms of the festival as something you can attend, that's 10 days in March. So the next one runs from the 21st to the 30th of March, 2025. mfwf.com.au.
Add the music.
Thanks to our principal partner, Latrobe Financial, and our destination partner, Visit Victoria. So that is selling fast, although we have 200 events right around Victoria. So broad brush, we're an independent, not-for-profit organisation. We're all about celebrating Victoria. We're all about bringing the best of the food and drink world to Victoria and bringing the best of the Victorian food and drink to the world. Boom.
The
He
lines,
killed that.
man.
He killed
Put
that.
that on your number
you should
plate
be a
and your
writer.
bumper sticker. Yeah. Look out. Get that man a scarf and some serious glasses. So we have a core program that we run ourselves end to end. So it's probably about a quarter of those 200 events. And then the other 175 are cool ideas that are submitted to the festival by restaurants, by cafes, by bars, by brewers, distillers, individuals, podcasters.
So businesses can apply for spots.
Yeah. So we get maybe 300 applications, and then we sort of winnow that down to the 150 or 170 this year that become part of the festival. It's a bit like the comedy festival, perhaps. That might be a useful analogy. Like, they have sort of big events that they do themselves, like their big galas. That's sort of a bit like our World's Longest Lunch and World's Longest Brunch. And then there's lots of small events, so
The collaborations and
yeah, exactly. And we work on those on a spectrum of ways. Like, some people will come to us with a completely finished event. Like, you guys come to me and you say, we want to do a live podcast and we're gonna, cook some rooster testicles live. We're gonna have a bunch of, the big prime movers in the rooster testicle world here talking about them. It'll be $10 a ticket, and it'll be at Into Coffee on, Sunday the 30th of March, and this is what you get for your money. Come on down.
Sorry, 1 second. Billy, did you tell him?
The jig is up. Rooster testicle fans. Other people are like, I'd really like to do something for the festival. And we're like,
yes.
Cool. Okay. And we can't work with absolutely everyone who comes. We're not a big enough organization to lead everyone by the hand through everything. But because of the connections we have and because of the experience our events team has in how to do an event, we can go, well, that probably won't work for these reasons, or you will need a permit to do that. Or if you want to tattoo people, you need to have it enclosed and you need to have these things by law. We have a cool tattooing event at the festival that you should check out. Yeah, if you want to go to the Beast, they will teach you how to tattoo. So you'll get a meal and drinks, and they'll be tattooing on some pigskin, so you can sort of learn to use the gun yourself.
Wow.
So when we see two restaurants doing a collab at Melbourne Food and Wine now, do they choose?
Sometimes. Yeah,
Okay.
sometimes they might. So Sarai, for example, is doing events with a couple of guys out
I
from
love Sarai.
Sarai Rules.
Had to drop that.
If Sarai is bringing out a couple of guys from the Philippines
Okay.
themselves, from Manila, they've just gone, we're going to do this. Other times I've got people who are interested in coming to Melbourne, and I'm like, oh, where can I put Eric Wareheim, who would do a good job with that? Hope Street Radio. Okay. And then I ring them up and I'm like, you guys meet. And it's sort of more like a blind date.
Oh.
So it
Awesome.
works in lots of different ways.
Okay.
And that collab thing, though it's something we're quite well known for, is also just part of the festival. I mean, you mentioned the Studio Ghibli films before. One of the fastest selling events we had in the last few years was Rabada Restaurant, a Japanese restaurant in the CBD. They did a tribute to the food of the films of Studio Ghibli. And I don't think they had Hayao Miyazaki out to do that. They were just like, this is cool, we're just going to do it. And it was a hit. So
Yeah, of course.
just a cool idea is
Yeah,
enough. We love it when people go crazy and are like, oh, we're going to do a dinner in an antique bomber flying around Melbourne. Like, great, I love that. Or we're going to bring someone out from New York. Awesome. But it can just be a great idea.
Mm.
What's the signature Melbourne Food and Wine event?
Well, we've been doing an event called the World's Longest Lunch for the entirety of the festival. So the first festival, which is 32 years ago, we did this World's Longest Brunch on the grounds of the MCG. Now it's an event. It's like the first day of the festival, so it'll be Friday the 21st of March. These days, it's the DNA of it is a beautiful or interesting location outdoors with an interesting chef cooking. So we've been on the Grand Prix track. We've been down the banks of the Maribyrnong River. We have done Lygon Street. This year we're in King's Domain, which is a nice park sort of on the side of the Botanic Gardens. Sorry, not the Botanic Gardens, more near the shrine, between the Shrine of Remembrance and the NGV. It's 500 meters of table. It's a beautiful outdoor setting. in past years, the cooks have included everyone from Antonio Carluccio, may he rest in peace, Ben Shuri, Andrew McConnell, Karen Martini, sort of luminaries of the Victorian food and drink world. We've got a particularly interesting one this year in the form of Curtis Stone. So Curtis is a Victorian-born chef. If you happen to own a television or a screen of any kind, you might have seen him. You might know who he is. But in addition to being a TV personality, he's actually a really good chef. I mean, he worked with Marco Pierre White.
That's how he became the TV personality.
Exactly. His restaurant Maud won a Michelin star in Los Angeles. So, and the cool thing about that is you can't really eat Curtis's food in Melbourne.
True.
This is it. So, and then off the back of World's Longest Lunch, a newer thing we've done the last few years is World's Longest Brunch, where in years past we've just taken that same table and kind of flipped the script and brought on some interesting and different talent. So this year it was an Indian theme. So we had 3 of the sort of more interesting, younger Indian Victorian talents from the food scene here playing around with brunch ideas. So Misha Trop from Toddy Shop, just up the road here in Fitzroy, Heli Ratura from Entevere Laundry, and the incredible Harry Mangat from BG Dining. That was really fun. The brunch for March is a banger. It just sold out, but if you can beg, borrow, or steal a ticket somehow, I urge you to do so. We're mixing it up a little bit. It's not in the same location this year. It's like a movable feast where we're kind of wandering around 3 different locations in the Royal Botanic Gardens. So you rock up and you have coffee and pastries. Then you walk to another beautiful part of the garden and there'll be like savory canapes and drinks. And then the final stop is down by one of the ponds where there'll be a whole cake station and lots more savory food and more drinks. All of it designed, curated by Julia Busadil Nishimura, the fantastic Melbourne author and the genius behind the Ostro brand. I don't know if you guys know Julia, but she's a remarkable ambassador for Melbourne eating, drinking, and living. And she lives in Clifton Hill.
Sounds incredible.
Is
it actually the longest, or is it just the name?
I would say it's just a name.
Okay.
But we've been doing it for 30 years, so it's more than just a name.
Okay. It's more than just,
now.
it's a movement.
Yeah.
You just sold the shit out of that to me.
I really want to
go.
And plus, you're going to see me there dressed as a creative director.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
I mean,
We could all come in some fancy dress.
yeah.
How do you manage to see like all these things happening? Like you work.
I won't get to 200 events, and lots of them are on the same day. So it's going to be really hard to figure out what to go to.
Yeah. Okay. How
It's a
do
good
you
problem to
choose?
have.
Do you just follow your heart or?
Yes. I mean, I need to play it a little bit loose because when we do 200 events, all those events have, let's say, 2 to 3 parties of people involved. And that's a lot of potential for parts to move. So I try not to lock things in too hard in that week because if someone needs to go and host something or if someone needs to find a missing person, like where's that chef gone? They were last seen at, Caretaker's Cottage on Tuesday night and we haven't heard of them since, etc. Someone needs to do that, and often that someone is me. Or there's usually a lot of press in from out of town then, so someone needs to sort of give them the jazz hands. So it's a pretty interesting week for me. It's fun, but it's
intense.
It's intense, and there's a lot of pretty quick channel shifting. So
Yeah.
but it's good.
What are you most excited about this year?
I am very excited about brunch. Not to bang on about it,
Yeah.
but we've also got some really exciting international talent. We've got the guys coming out from Brat in London, which is a restaurant I particularly love. Thomas Parry, Vaughan McBee, I think, is one of the most incredible talents cooking in Australasia. He's the chef at a restaurant called Amersfield in Queenstown, in New Zealand. He is a hoot. There's no conversation that you can enter into with Vaughan that doesn't expand your horizons in some capacity. We've got an incredible chef called Konstantin Philippou, who's a Austrian Greek chef who's coming here to cook. We've got a couple more announcements coming. that I can't tell you about yet. The world's best baker, Richard Hart, is coming out. He runs a bakery called Hart Bakery in Copenhagen. He'll be doing a pop-up for most of the festival down at Melbourne Quarter, which will be sick.
That's incredible.
The guys from St. John, one of my favorite restaurants in the world, a restaurant in London, will be doing their first ever residency at French Saloon. So that actually they might be good people to talk to about the rooster testicles.
Ah, okay.
What they don't know about offal is not worth knowing.
Mm.
So we've got lots of really good drinks events. The winemakers from Good Oggau are coming out.
It's amazing.
It's a lot. So
huge, yeah.
it'll be fun. It's also just, hi. Even before I worked for the festival, I remember being in Melbourne for the festival and just walking down the street, running into like people from around Australia or people from around the world who love food. Just like if you're at a restaurant or if you're at, I don't know, Gerald's Bar, you know, you might run into Massimo Bottura doing the hula hoop on the nature strip. That actually happened. It's a cool time to be in Melbourne.
Yeah.
You know, it's like Melbourne's a great place to eat and drink at the best of times. Let's not kid around here. But it's like all of that cranked.
Yeah. Do you do a lot of writing now in your current role?
Not enough.
Do you miss it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
How do you see like that whole like writing thing going in the future in terms of like demand and like people that likes to write, but is it worth getting into? What's your thought about that topic?
I would say the fact that I have moved into the events business is me voting with my feet, you know, in terms of hedging and diversifying my income streams. But then at the same time, I've moved into an events business where I am daily working with writing and editing. So it's hard to say. I mean, I think people's appetite, as I said, you know, a few questions ago, I think people's appetite for good storytelling is undiminished. Whether and how you can make a buck out of that, I don't know. I mean, weirdly, because there aren't any new people really coming into the game because they're like, oh, gee, you can't make a living in journalism. The people who still do it, like me, you know, I still get a fair bit of work. So maybe it's still viable. I'd like to think so.
That's incredible. It's a good point. Like, not many people are doing it. So
Yes.
when
The
you know
pool
what I
is
mean?
smaller.
Everyone gave up on it.
Yeah.
Cool.
You spoke a lot about, you know, giving advice to younger people. If you were going to go back and give yourself a piece of advice just at the start, that early onset of your career, what would it be?
The question you did not expect.
So many pieces of advice. Enjoy your hair while you've got it, obviously. It's great advice to all of you. If your mother's father is bald, you will go bald. That is a fact. That is a genetic fact. You might try and kid yourself otherwise, but that's a fact. No, it was good while it lasted. Spend less money on martinis and more money on saving to buy a house. I don't know. Buy a house in Sydney or Melbourne 25 years ago. Buy a house right now. Don't fuck around. Buy a house now.
Yeah.
Buy 5. I don't know. I don't regret any of those things. I have actually thought about this before, and you know, they say if the human brain was simple enough that we could explain it, we'd be too stupid to understand it. I feel like 47-year-old me could fly back and talk to 21-year-old me or 17-year-old me, and 17-year-old me would be like, whatever, dude.
Yeah.
You know, like what could I say?
At that age, you're like, what the fuck do you
whatever.
know?
Like, really? Like, who cares? I'm
Yeah.
bulletproof.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I'm kind of happy with how things have worked out. Be nicer. It's always good advice. Listen more than you talk.
Right.
You know?
Did you feel like there was times where you weren't nice enough, or you were nice and just being nicer is always a good?
I'm pretty grateful for the nice that I have been. That, you know, and I haven't done it for transactional reasons, but turns out that it is a good thing to do with long-term benefits. The, you know, fingers you might step on today might be the hand that pulls you out of the morass tomorrow. You know, kindness is an underrated virtue. Compassion is even more underrated. None of that's super snappy. I mean, I've got lots of like career-y advice that I can lay on you, but cut your prologue. That's always good advice as a writer.
Right.
Just like so many times if I'm doing a longer form piece of writing, go right. This is how I type, by the way. Right. And then you finish it and then you're like, oh, that top bit is kind of lame. Just chop it. And then by the time you get to that second paragraph, you're like, that's the shit. Or, and actually read your work out loud. If any of you are writing and you want to like check the quality of your writing, read it out loud, preferably to another living human being. That's the best case scenario. But if not that, just to yourself, that will very quickly reveal to you any deficiencies in your writing. It'll show you if your jokes are funny. If you can't say a sentence in a breath, it's probably too long. You know, that's very simple advice you can take away today. So, yeah.
Beautiful.
Those things.
Would you want to write a book?
I've written a book. I
written
co-wrote the James Beard Award nominated book Esther with Matt Lindsay, which is about a great Sydney restaurant that you should all go to.
Called
In
Esther?
Sydney.
It's called Esther.
Very
Okay.
popular.
Beautiful.
We haven't been yet, but
You should go.
yeah.
Matt will never do an interview. Matt is the least publicity keen chef I have ever known, which is super refreshing, and that made him a fun person to work with. It's a great restaurant. It's a wonderful restaurant.
Beautiful.
Fantasy?
Fantasy question.
I'd love to ride a horse with no saddle.
That's the
That'd be amazing.
That's the one. That's the reaction we've been wanting. Everyone's
That's
like,
it.
"Ooh, fantasy." I hope it's not anything like anything
Well.
weird.
Let's get weird. How weird are you going to get? What do you got for me? What's the difference between a thought and a feeling?
True. What is the difference between a thought and a
I ask you
feeling?
guys.
A thought is a thought, but a feeling is a feeling.
That
You
is
have
a
to
great
think. You have
answer.
to think to feel. You have to think to feel the feeling.
We'll come back to this.
You have to feel.
What's
to
the
think
fantasy
thing.
question?
Here you go.
Fantasy question is: if time and place was not an issue, so it could be anyone dead or alive, who would you want to collaborate with?
It's like it's not complete like time and space erased. Like obviously, you know, having any of the major religious figures like collaborating with the Buddha would be pretty strong, I reckon. But in a narrower like potentially thing that could happen, I would love to get Li Ziqi for the Melbourne Food Wine Festival. I don't know if you guys know her work. She's a Chinese video blogger. She's one of the most famous video bloggers in the world. It's Liziqi. I'm almost certainly mispronouncing her name. I'm sorry to the Mandarin speakers in your audience. She makes these incredible YouTubes where she lives in the countryside in Sichuan province, and if she's going to like make a stir fry of, I don't know, tofu, preserved eggs and green chilies, it starts with her going out, planting the chili seeds, harvesting the soybeans, you know, like
I
she'll
think I have seen this
it's hypnotic.
Yeah.
It's like sometimes people
The
have
videos
it
are
on
long.
like dance parties and things like that. The video, there's almost no dialogue in them. And yes, she obviously has a really good production team around her, but you see her when she's wielding that cleaver, and that's her. Like she really knows what she's doing. And I love Szechuan food, so I think she would be incredible. What
Awesome.
a boss.
I think Shoot for the Stars, Buddha. Why?
Well, I mean, Buddha would be incredible. I mean, you know, one of the most important philosophical minds in human history, has had some great food named for him. Just super interesting guy.
Yeah.
Are you spiritual? Like
Ish.
ish. What? Why is that? Like why ish?
What do you believe in? Yeah.
Well, I don't follow any organized religion, but I have felt enough of the feels to know that there is more to human experience than the tables, the chairs, the coffee cups. You know, it's a pretty big universe out there, and we are a rounding error in it. So, here's an image for you. Do you guys know how the universe was formed according to the general consensus of human science?
I have no idea.
Big Bang. It's a thing called the Big Bang. Really big explosion.
I have another story in my mind.
No,
but
but this is the consensus of, you know, Western science at the moment. So
Yeah.
there are lots of other stories, and they're cool. But the Big Bang theory was there's a really big explosion. You might have heard about it in school. one detail of this that gets overlooked is that the explosion took thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of years. So while we think about the universe or the galaxies as blackness, and that's what they are now, it's mostly a void, for thousands, millions, millennia, eons at the beginning, it was just light. I think that's a nice one to think on, you know. You don't need to have ingested mushrooms or ayahuasca to think about that, but if you have, it's super fun, I would imagine. That's our reality. You know, that's the universe we live in. That's really fun.
Yeah.
Blinding light, just pure light for, you know, 1,000 lifetimes, 1,000,000 lifetimes.
I watched a YouTube video recently where it shows what time is going to... Because our lifespan is so short in the actual grand scheme of how long time has been around for and the existence of everything. And
Time is a flat circle, though.
yeah. And we are just living in this really tiny portion where we actually are going to be able to live for so long. So I think it's quite affirming to think of, not as the universe is so big, I'm so insignificant, but I get to live at all because just by chance human life has existed
Oh, yeah.
for this period of time, and it won't be around for that. It's going to be around for the like a grain of sand in the grand scheme of time and how long we're going to actually be here for, which is incredible
Yeah.
to know.
Let's go.
Let's go.
I think, yeah, we usually just like to wrap it up with some rapid fire question. You ready?
He's got his cowboy hat on. He's ready.
If you had to ban one food forever, what would it be and why?
I won't ban any of the foods. I think all
Knew
the
he was gonna
foods
say
are
it. I knew he was
delicious.
gonna say
I
that.
don't know. I mean, what do I not like?
Come on, one thing.
I really hate it when you eat chips like crisps at the beach and you get sand in them. I would love that to never happen.
Still not really saying a
It's
food.
not
It's
a
just saying
real
it's more of a
answer.
situation. Yeah.
You're trying to dodge our spot.
I haven't really brought. I'm not big on lungs, but I don't want to ban them. Like, I'm willing to believe that in the right hand, I believe in talent. I believe in good ideas. So there's so many things that I didn't like when I started out that I like now. So I don't know. White chocolate. White chocolate can fuck off.
What?
Bang.
Okay.
I like
There
it.
you
I
go.
like that you went for it.
I don't like it.
White
Yeah.
chocolate.
Like, in the
can
right
fuck
hands,
off.
sure, but
Is your sign white chocolate?
yeah, you've had your time. On your way, get in the bin.
On your butt.
Okay, what's one thing you'd change about Melbourne's food scene overnight?
I'd love more amazing Latin American food. It's kind of just it's not like a deficiency. Like, we have incredible Southeast Asian food. We have really, really good Middle Eastern food. You know, the Italian food here is fantastic. Our cafe culture is second to none. We just don't have that many Latin American people here. Like, that number is changing. That fact is changing, particularly Mexican food. Like, I just love Mexican food.
So good.
But, I mean, in the early 2000s, I lived in a share house with a bunch of Mexican guys, and if they had a barbecue at our house, the entire Mexican population of Sydney was there, and it was not that many people. So it's just a fact of where we are and who's here, but that could change. So, I mean, when I moved here only 5 years ago, the Thai food in Melbourne was not that great, and it was the subject of derision from people in Sydney, and now I think that has really changed and changed fast. So anything is possible.
What's your favorite Thai restaurant? I know you,
I like Roslyn.
Rosalind.
I love Roslyn for breakfast. I'm really enjoying the places at the top of Burke Street. Those little spots up there. They're really cool. What do I like in Thai food in Melbourne? Lots. And I really want to try the new Soy 38. I haven't been down there yet.
Mm-hmm.
And there's actually a smattering of places opening down the bottom end of the city as well. There's a pretty good Isam place called Zab Noir on King Street. There's kind of places that specialize in just one thing that I really like. Like, there's a place on Hardware Lane that just does the Thai version of chicken rice, which I really dig on. I'm really into Kanom Jin, particularly Kanom Jin Nam Ya. I haven't had a great one in Melbourne yet. I would like to see a bit more Southern Thai happening here, but it'll happen.
Beautiful.
I feel like we haven't tapped heavily in that side of Pat, the foodie side. But that's
Yeah.
okay.
A good
We
talk to you
should
for a
we should
very
eat
long
some
time.
Southern Thai food together.
That's
Let's do
okay.
it.
Do you guys eat spicy food?
Love.
I gotta say that was not rapid fire.
Sorry. Okay. Keep me on track. Let's go.
Yes.
No.
Yeah, that's
Done. Get out.
What's the hardest decision you've ever made in your career?
You're asking me questions that are really hard to answer at rapid fire. Hardest question in my career. Choosing actually like ditching a million freelance jobs to just do mostly Gourmet Traveller was at the time a really difficult call for me to make. It was the right call, but that was hard.
Mm-hmm. Okay. If you could go back, we spoke about that one. What's the most brutal truth about working in hospitality that no one admits?
I'm going to give you a twist on it. I work in events and it's just weather. Like it's make or break.
There you go. If it rains, you're
Keep going.
fucked.
We how rapid fire do you want me to elaborate? Like how rapid fire do you want to be? But like we still put on a good event. We're used to it. We're an events company that exists in Melbourne. We know we need to be weather ready, but it's just much nicer and much easier to win on a nice day.
Yeah, it is.
So good. Good answer. Very good.
Fact.
If you weren't in your field, what would you be doing?
What I really want to do is direct.
Like a movie?
Sure.
Cool.
Really?
Yeah, why not?
We
How
should get
fun
one
is
as a
it?
director.
How fun is it making reels and things? Like it's awesome. The decision fatigue I think would get big on a big project.
Do you want to come and direct?
I'd love
a video
to.
campaign for us.
Absolutely. I'll bring my own hands.
Pat Nourse.
Actually,
ex-Hub
probably it's
Media.
like this more now rather than
Yeah.
like that. But yeah,
I reckon you'll be a good director.
It would, yeah.
I make a lot of decisions fast.
You got the
No,
vision.
you also have that, like,
The fingers.
yeah.
He's a director. He loves directing.
Best piece of advice you have ever received.
We kind of covered this a little bit, but
So that was it.
yeah, let's go with that. I mean, I like I do really like interesting people are interested people.
Interesting people are interested people.
Or probably interested people are interesting people.
It
And
can be
being
flipped both ways,
being
yeah.
bored is boring.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you're bored, you're boring.
Kinda.
Yeah.
Okay. We're gonna get a bit emotional here.
I think get the tissues ready.
A career moment that
Should we hold
made
hands?
A career moment that made you tear up.
Ooh. I'm not a big land crier. I cry on planes. Actually, just
Land crier. I was
Yeah.
like, what are you
I'm
getting
not-
at
I'm
with
not-
land crier?
I'm very,
I don't
like-
cry on land.
I'm
Water,
very,
maybe?
I'm crying now. I'm very pro crying. Like I think it's really good. I don't think it's like a sign of weakness, and I definitely don't think it's something that men should avoid doing. I'm just not wired that way. But when I'm on a plane, I don't really like flying. It's that combination of like anxiety and altitude and possibly muscle relaxants that like I'll cry at the drop of a hat. I cry during The Incredibles. I cry during Sandra Bullock movies.
Oh my
like
God.
so that's sort of an answer there for you.
No way.
Yeah,
It
big.
must have been challenging for you. Or
Like,
maybe it was very cathartic for you because you would have been on planes a lot.
It's just they go back together and the family help them.
Mrs. Incredible, why the hell would you do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
The hardest lesson you've learned.
Mm. I have sometimes looked back on some of the ways I've spoken to people, and in retrospect, I was like, that was probably a bit harsh, and that could have been better phrased, and I could have been more considerate of that person's feelings. And actually, on a related note, I think as a grown-ass man, I'm getting better at like saying to friends or people I care about, particularly new friends, like, I really like hanging out with you and I really enjoy your company and I'd like to spend more time with you and I really like being your friend.
Wow.
And I don't know, maybe it's being a man of my age and culture. Like you say those things, but they're usually dressed up as other things, or you like have to say it in a different way, or you have to be intoxicated or you have to be in a particular circumstance. And I am eager to speak those ideas more directly more often.
Be more expressive. with
Be
your
more
emotions.
explicit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And straight and direct.
Let people know.
That's fantastic. Have you done that recently?
And yeah, I have. And it's I guess it's all about a willingness to be more vulnerable. So, and you know, like actually in a related note, a willingness to not always have all the answers, you know, and to be like, and you know, trying to be right all the time is a really big problem. It's a deficiency.
Yeah.
Embrace it.
Thank you for sharing that. That was beautiful.
What drives you to keep going on hard days?
Well, when I was working on the Esther book, which was really great because like Matt is super organized. I was incredibly lucky to be a co-author on a book with a chef who is extremely organized, because that is not always the case. Nonetheless, because I was doing it on nights and weekends while doing a full-time job, I frequently thought about stepping off the project. I was like, why am I doing this? Like, what a punish. I would think Matt is doing this and he has 3 restaurants. So, like, I should just harden the fuck up. Also, I thought about Josh Nyland, the chef from St. Peter, who wrote his first book on his phone with one hand at Christmas. If you're watching this, Josh, fuck you. But thank you for providing the motivation. Man. Like, fucking Josh Nyland. God damn it. So, you know.
So other people's kind of...
Well, I didn't want to let anyone down. That's probably the real thing. And also, I don't know, it's just like...
knowing your worth as well and not wanting to be disappointed but disappoint other people and not want to disappoint yourself as well is a big thing. Like, I think sometimes when I find things challenging, I'll be like, well, you said you were going to do it and you can do it because of the reasons that you're saying, because other people have done it and no one person is better or worse than you. So you should just be able to fucking do it too. So do it.
It's like that yoga thing where it's like you need to find your level, and despite what, I don't know, Nike or the internet tells you, it's not about hitting a 10 out of 10 all the time. That is unrealistic and probably dangerous. Like, so you don't want to be here all the time because you'll burn out or injure yourself or fuck up. Also, you don't want to be here because you're not going to build muscle or flexibility or resilience if you're not trying. But here, like a 7, maybe an 8, where if you need to punch to a 10, you can, but you're not just like flopping around doing nothing. That feels good. It doesn't give you that gross, under-exercised, under-stretched feeling. Like, you feel like you're getting shit done. It feels good when you get shit done. That will set you free. Like, I remember in my 20s, I was not super organized initially, and then something clicked and I got into the school of Do It Now. And the school of Do It Now is a great place to be, because what you don't know when you're not in the school of Do It Now is how freeing it is. So it's like the idea of, like, if you want to get something done, give it to a busy person. Like, something comes on my desk, on a good day, I deal with it. I don't just flick it off to someone else. I like do the thing, solve the problem. Even around your house, you know, like you get that, is that thing that you keep meaning to fix. Oh, I got to hang that picture. I got to fix that tap. I got to do that thing. If you don't address those things consciously or unconsciously, it's death by 1,000 paper cuts. You know, and these can be things in your life as well. These can be like, oh, I really needed to like say thank you to Billy for like doing that thing for me, or, you know, like I think I left Tyrone hanging on that thing, you know, and those things can suck your life away. And then when you flip into like the paradigm of like, fucking do it, man, it's so freeing, and it frees up so much bandwidth, and you feel more emotionally available, you're more intellectually available, you feel physically better. And look, you've also got to be a bit compassionate with yourself, because no one's on top of it all the time. Shit happens. You get sick. People come in. There's X factors and curveballs, and shit does pile up. But when you find that way to get out from under, so you're on top of the pile, not under it, get back on top of it, it's just the best feeling. So do it now.
The school of
If
doing
not, if not now, when? If not you, then who? I think it was like a 5th century rabbi who said that.
Yeah.
But it's good advice. He
Yeah.
could be good. He could be a good collaborator.
Yeah, we should get him onto the podcast.
Rabbi
the fifth
Hillel.
century,
Yeah. Him and Buddha. I don't know who you have first, but
Yeah.
together.
I mean, we'll probably get them on together. They're
Yeah.
pretty low key individuals. So
While you're talking right now, I was just thinking to myself about those little things that needs to be done, but they're just like kind of stand by, and you feel the weight of overwhelming feeling
Ugh.
all the time because of those little things. But yeah, it's a very interesting point.
or you move them to the to don't list. I don't practice this, but a friend of mine talks about this. She's like, there's also the to don't list, and if it's been on your to do list for this amount of time, then
cut it.
Cut
That's
it.
very freeing.
I don't practice that, but I see the appeal of it.
I've been doing that with some things recently. It's like, oh, this thing I have to do it. I have to do it. It's like, why don't I just fucking not do it? And then what? Because of doing it out of your brain, accepting the fact that you don't care about it enough to have done it by now. Same feeling.
Yeah.
Slice it out.
On that note,
Yeah.
that was incredible.
That was
Pleasure.
really fantastic.
Thanks for having me. I thought we'd just be talking about pies, and that's good.
Pies.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you have
Why
any
pies?
pies?
Do you want to say something about pies?
I don't know. I just thought we'd be more food oriented, but I'm glad that we went to the inner recesses of my psyche and talked about having the Buddha over for dinner.
That's what we want.
Is he a vegetarian? I
Do
think
you
he's
like
I think
that?
he's a vegetarian. That's
Do you-
that's cool. I'm down with that.
Do you like this format for a kind
Yeah.
of food-based podcast? Because we like it. We decided to go down this path.
The reason I find food interesting is because it's not a weird silo. Like, it touches on everything in our lives. We are made of food. You're physical beings. This is made of all the things that you have eaten to date, or technically probably in the last 18 months. It's the one cultural form that is not optional. The architects might argue for architecture there, but you could conceivably live without a house. You will not live very long without food. It's freighted with meaning and culture and magic. It's delicious. It's fun. It's a really good way to get to know people. It's super interesting. And the fact that it has, we've ostensibly talked about food, but it's kind of rove from food to the Big Bang Theory, to the founder of Buddhism, to rooster testicles and back again,
We did
is
talk-
testament to the richness of the subject.
We spoke about many things today.
Oh, we did.
There's
You're
a
a
lot
really
on the
interesting
menu.
guy.
Oh, it's you guys.
And
No, it's
Sharp,
you.
he remembered it. Like,
Yeah.
I'm sitting here now, I'm kind of like...
It'll all be in the show notes.
You're excellent. Yeah. You're going to email those over to us, right, when we're done?
Of course, yeah.
Fantastic.
Well, we really wish you the best.
Yeah, we do.
It's
Thank
been
you
a
so
pleasure to be
much.
with you guys.
It's been so fantastic chatting with you.
We
I could sit here and talk to you for many more hours.
I normally hate being asked the questions. I normally, you may have noticed that I'm trying to turn it around, ask you the questions, but you guys ask great questions. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Beautiful.
sir.
That's it. Thanks so much.